How did he connect this to Bogard? How is Bogard relevant? All roads lead to Bogard, okay? I've been trying to tell you guys this. It's been in front of our eyes this entire time. I could make a much bigger roadmap, but for right now, this is what we're gonna have to make do with. Let's start with Garp, okay? Bogard's superior, his captain, right? Bogard has served him at least 38 years back at God Valley, where he had his biggest battle, right? Then we saw him again during Ed War, which is around 11 years later. And then we saw him with Garp in the Kobe Meppo cover story, which takes place 27 years after Ed War. Below Bogard, we have the two chore boys that they trained into fairly competent Marines, Kobe and Helmeppo. Kobe, we saw how he turned out, and you can attribute a lot of his growth to Garp. But Helmeppo, basically, purely his swordsmanship skills came from Bogard. And Bogard got him from a chore boy to someone who can withstand a clash with Zoro within a few weeks, like 3 to 6 weeks. And then next to these guys, we have the OG Marines, which do include Garp and Bogard, because as far as we know, the Marines that have been in the Navy for the longest include Kong, Tsuru, Sengoku, and Garp and Bogard. That's basically, and the Marines we saw accompanying Garp to God Valley. That's it. As far as these guys go, Kong is the one who sent Garp and Bogard to God Valley, so he must have some sort of relationship with Bogard. And then Tsuru has never been interacting with Bogard, but again, she is an OG Marine like Bogard is, so she probably has talked to him. And then Sengoku is Garp's best friend. I don't doubt that he has some sort of a relationship with Bogard. And then we have the admirals down here, the admirals that are connected to Bogard, Kuzan, Fuji, and Kizaru. So Kizaru bit Bogard's drip. That's pretty much it. And then Fuji, he kind of bit Bogard's sword technique because he uses Iaido, which is something that a lot of swordsmen in One Piece do, but Bogard is the one to use it first. So basically anyone using it after him is, they're trying to join the wave. And then we have Kuzan, who we haven't seen interact with Bogard directly, but they have been on the same ship together, and he's Garp's student. He definitely is pretty familiar with Bogard. And then we got the Vice Admirals down here. The manga is basically serving as what a benchmark for what an average Vice Admiral's strength could look like, okay? And the same thing with Guion. She's a female swordsman who was considered for the position of admiral, but stayed as a vice admiral instead. These are the caliber of Marines that Garp could have chosen as his right hand. And then we have the Cross Guild, who are kind of connected in the same way. For one, Mihawk, he was once known as the Marine Hunter, and then he ended up becoming a warlord and allying with the Marines. We don't know why that happened. We do know he has a grudge against Marines. But seeing as Bogard has fought at God Valley, he has to have some sort of notoriety, and he's a Marine swordsman who serves under the hero of the Marines. It's either Mihawk ducked Bogard, or they fought and neither really had any crazy injuries. So there's that. But then with Buggy, Bogard is actually the one that captured Buggy and put him in Impel Down. And we saw Oda reference this in an SBS, and we saw it firsthand in the anime. We know Mihawk attempted to defeat Buggy and he wasn't able to. Hey, I'm not trying to use that to downplay Mihawk, but this dude could do it. Then we have the Straw Hat Pirates, starting with Luffy. Okay, so Luffy has not had any direct interactions with Bogard, but Bogard has indirectly referenced him in one of his only lines in the manga, and in the live action, he has directly referenced Luffy. He definitely has some sort of a relationship with Luffy, okay? And then we have Brook. Same thing with Fuji right here. They both use the Iaido sword technique. It's actually Brook's signature, but like Bogard used it first. And that's the same thing with Zoro. He also uses the Iaido sword technique, and Bogard used it before him, which is how this connects to Ryuma, because the last time that Oda drew the Iaido sword technique before Bogard was with Ryuma, the main character of his one-shot manga. And as for Usopp, Bogard is actually the one to tell Usopp about Yasopp's nickname in a scrapped page. One of his only lines is talking to Usopp. So that's how we're connected to Yasopp, because it turns out that Bogard somehow knows Yasop's nickname, and he's telling Usopp about it in a scrap page. The Ben Beckman connection is pretty weak, but it essentially is just they're both old right-hand men, and they both haven't really shown their full power, so. Which is kind of the same way he connects to Shanks. Both are swordsmen who have not shown their full power. But Shanks was actually on the same island as Bogard at one point, God Valley, right? So there's that. And then, of course, there's the Roger Pirates. Now, presumably, we can infer that Bogard has interacted with the Roger Pirates many times. But we do know that they fought, or they allied with the Roger Pirates at God Valley. So these were Bogard allies at one point, Rayleigh, Gabon, and Roger. But specifically for Rayleigh, what I want to talk about is Rayleigh, while rusty, was able to hang with an admiral, okay? He hasn't been fighting since he was on the Roger Pirates like 25 years back in the story. Bogard, however, has been on active duty for the entirety of that time. So I just feel like that gives us some sort of a scale for what Bogard could look like in battle. There's Kinemon all alone here. You can basically imagine the scabbards around him because Kinemon can use advanced armament hockey. And this is a technique that's shown to be fairly rare, except Hyogoro described it the same way that Zoro's sensei described it, right? He said a sword can cut what it wishes to cut, but it can also protect what it wishes to protect. And this is something that Bogard displayed in chapter 99 on Kobe's pistols. He didn't land a single scratch on Kobe, just dismantled his pistols. We hadn't seen something like that before Bogard showed us that. So it could be assumed that Bogard knows advanced armament hockey based off the description that Hyogoro had about that power, right? Which means Bogard can possibly cut Kaido. I would not put it past him. But then finally we also have Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Rox. So these are Bogard's opponents at God Valley. That's a pretty easy way to connect these guys. But also at the same time, I would like to assume that Garp's unit has run into the Whitebeard Pirates at one point, so I think they have fought outside of God Valley. But then for Rox, both Rox and Bogard are swordsmen who have not gotten full introduction boxes yet. And they probably will get one once God Valley is shown. So yeah, this is basically what I have created, the Bogard roadmap, right? This is essentially my testament to TikTok. This is going to be my farewell, essentially. We'll see how this brings in traffic to my YouTube. I'm not sure how this will work, but yeah, hope you guys like this content. This took me fucking ages to prepare, so I'd appreciate some support, you know, just telling me that looks good, because honestly, I don't know if it does look good. I kind of feel like Pepe Silva.